All right, we are recording for Chapter 6 of Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Um, yeah, there's a few things in here. One that it's... let me read the highlight, then explain why I don't actually like this line. Why is it a constant the Vulcan, Spock, wondered, that the universe resists favorable change, particularly in the realm of politics? Why is it that those who are most likely to instigate such change, no matter how rational, how reasonable, how humane and necessary, are also most likely to be murdered or deposed before they see the reforms enacted? Spock shouldn't be stupid enough to have that thought, because he should recognize that the universe does not change because of the actions of great men, but by normal men. It is not the leaders, like Gorkin was, who instigate the change. It is the people who listen to the leaders, who follow the leaders. Okay? Gorkin could be just as great, but if he is screaming into the void, nothing will be achieved, because it's not in his power to make that change. It is only in the power by him changing the culture of the clans to at least start accepting peace, to see that as an option instead of war. So, him being so down, I can understand. Him being black-pilled is how I should put it in there, because I think I'm using that term correct. That's one of those things I don't quite fully understand the nuance of what a black pill is versus, like, sometimes there's a reference to doom pilling. Maybe it's the same thing, I'm not sure, but in any case. So I can understand that because he is upset. But it's still, this way of thinking is... I think the best way to put it, it's... I don't know if this is the right use of the term, so forgive me if it's wrong, but kind of reductionist. That it is reducing it down to being just... Oh yeah, it's because of this person. It's not because of all the other stuff going on. That one person might be critical to it, but it's still, as I said, changes from the people, not from the person. And he should recognize that. It is a reality. And it's very, very disappointing to see it for Spock that he doesn't get that. But we also have this. So he is taking command. He turned to Valeris staring. He turned to find Valeris staring at him. One brow lifted in disbelief. But Captain Spock, she protested, we cannot allow them to be taken back to the Klingon homeworld as prisoners. He looked at her calmly, wondering if she detected the emotional implication of her statement. Apparently she did not, for she quickly added, it is logical to assume that the doctor and the captain are innocent of any crime, is it not? Besides, based on what you know of their character, I feel it is a rational assumption, yes. The Klingons have not had the years of experience that I have had in dealing with the Doctor and the Captain. They therefore lack the basis to make such an assumption. But since we do, should we not intervene? What do you suggest, Lieutenant? Opening fire on the Klingon vessel will not retrieve the Captain, and an armed engagement was precisely what he wished to avoid. Nor can we simply transport them to the Enterprise, as Kronos has raised her shields. Technically it should be Kronos 1, because Kronos is the name of the planet, but regardless. So I do find this longer exchange between them interesting, because you do get some of that exchange in the movie. But it is shorter, it's more direct. We don't have the back and forth there. It's more just a digit and done. You could also throw in there, something about the irony of the situation is because somebody apparently fired on the Klingon ship, and are you suggesting we open fire on the Klingon ship to resolve this? But, yeah. So Spock is going to head out with Scotty to go and check the inventory to be certain. Like, the databanks are wrong, well, seemingly wrong. Let's confirm this. Now, one thing that I am uncertain about, especially because of how some of it might be written later, how maybe it's the false narrative issue narrator issue that I talked about in the previous chapter. But Valeris doesn't necessarily seem to be arguing this as a conspirator to try to force an engagement that will certainly lead to the war. Excuse me. That doesn't seem to be the case here. So, is it not the case? And say I can trust what's being written here, or can we not trust the narrator? I don't know. And it bothers me. And there's also the issue that basically, well, later on in this chapter, everyone that isn't a Klingon agrees that the Klingon Empire will lose to the Federation if they fight. So, why do the Klingons want a war then? I mean, yeah, there is the whole we'll die fighting, and that's honorable, but it's not the Federation way to wipe them out. So there would be some survivors, and they'd be in a far, far weaker position. So it doesn't make sense when you actually stop to think about it, aside from satisfying their own pride. Which can be enough, but unless it is they figure that they can mass produce enough of that prototype, the prototype that can fire while cloaked, and then they can use that to, even once the war's engaged and once it's going forward, they figure, hey, we can just get a few of these out there, and we can force them to a peace, to a treaty that is more favorable to them, or just that they can actually defeat the Federation. I don't think so. I don't think that you would actually see even a handful of those ships being enough to defeat the Federation, but to compel a more favorable peace, yeah, I can see that. But technically, they can already do that. I mean, they only need the one ship to show that, hey, we can do this. But anyway, moving on. We get to the President's quarters. So we got the Federation President that I do need to talk about a little bit. Sarek, the Romulan ambassador, and the Klingon ambassador. Kamarag, their Klingon counterpart, stated his government's case against Leonard McCoy and James Kirk. Unfortunately, it was the most logical, well-reasoned argument Sarek had ever heard Kamarag put forth. I had to highlight that just because it's a little funny. Which, by the way, I find it odd. Sarek is being referred to as the Vulcan ambassador because in the trilogy, it was said he was retired. But we've not had any statement that he is rejoined the Force, that he has again become the ambassador. It's just, oh yeah, he's the ambassador. A point is also made, though, that Sarek makes a point, it's only circumstantial evidence that they have. Sarek also does point out that, no, by international law, everything they're doing is correct. They have arrested them, and they will try them. There is sufficient circumstantial evidence for the charges, just not sufficient substantive evidence to actually show that there's any responsibility for them. So, yeah. But it's not like Kamarag wants to hear that. All he wants is the whole, they turned themselves over. They were legally arrested. There was an assassination that clearly happened. It appeared to be from them. Yeah, so it's like, no, he's right. They can be arrested, but their case is flimsy. Which is actually one thing that I do wonder about. Is, yes, they can be tried by the Klingons, but you'd also think that the international law would allow for a Federation representative to be their defense, not another Klingon. Because it's like, so, do we have a defense? But moving on, I am not going to try to pronounce the President's name. But it says he's a Deltan, pale-skinned, white-haired, and at the moment possessed of numerous concerns, not the least of which was preventing a war. And I just find it curious because in the movie, it's very clear who the President is. In The Voyage Home, it is mentioned that one of the officers on the Saratoga, I believe it is a Deltan. And it looked like the same, it's like the same makeup. It's like, okay, so that's... I mean, when I read that in the book saying that he was a Deltan, it's like, okay, is that this guy or that? I wasn't sure who it was in Voyage Home. So it's like, all right, maybe it's somebody else. Because one of the other scientists in Wrath of Khan at Genesis is a Deltan. There's no one there who has that makeup. And that is not the appearance I would get from Ilea for the males of... I mean, she was female, yes, but for the males of the species, I wouldn't expect that very different appearance. So, yeah, I just find that confusing. Unless it was decided, yeah, we're just gonna change the Deltons completely. That seems odd. Because, it's not like the Klingon situation where in the original series they couldn't afford the makeup. At least that's my thing. Well, no, I have seen stuff that they were in fact unable to afford the makeup, so they went with what they could for the original series. But then once they got to the movies, hey, they could afford the better makeup, like the full face prosthetics, all that. But that shouldn't have been the case for the Deltons throughout the movies because they had the budget. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that unless it is we're just changing the Deltons and we don't really want to talk about the motion picture because there are problems there. Moving on. I don't know. Speaking of the motion picture, by the way, although who's it? Okay, this is the Kamarag has left. The Cartwright, Smiley, and the lieutenant, who I don't even remember if he's named in here, but I can never pronounce his last name. Renee something. The dude who goes on to play Odo in Deep Space Nine, he's the lieutenant in this case. But they come in, Sarek, and the Romulan ambassador. Why the hell the Romulan ambassador is still out in the room for this? I don't know, but they come in as like, yeah, we got a plan prepared so we can go in, get them minimal casualties and loss of technology. It's like, should we maybe not be seeing that and saying that in front of these guys? Especially the Romulan ambassador who's, has a relationship with the Klingon Empire. It's like they get along. It's like, anyhow. Those men have literally saved this planet, and you know it. This is Smiley saying to the president. Sarek knew he referred to the mysterious probe that had once disrupted Earth's climate and would have made the planet a frozen wasteland had Kirk and his crew not intervened. Also V'ger. About 10 years prior to that event. It's like, yeah, that there is also V'ger, that in the whole motion picture thing that was also saving the planet. I get the whole let's move on from the motion picture. I get that, but it still is that is twice that he saved the planet. We also get this that is a little amusing. I want the crew of the so everyone leaves except for Sarah. I want the crew of Enterprise in my office tomorrow morning. Sarek blinked. He doubted the crew of the Enterprise had any intention of heading back for Earth at the moment, but it would have been most unwise to mention his suspicion to the President. Instead, he said, they are still in space, Mr. President, adjacent to the Klingon neutral zone. I cannot pronounce the name. Narrowed his pale eyes. Then tell your son to get the hell back here before the end of the week. I don't want the Enterprise any more involved. And Sarek's like, okay, and then leaves and it's like, I'm an ambassador, dude. He's my son, but the order has to come through Starfleet. Also, Spock's not going to listen to it. He's not coming back. He's not going to do that. Which, Spock's reasoning is totally valid. That so long as they're there, that none of the evidence can be compromised. So long as they're out in space, none of the evidence can be compromised. But the moment they get back to Earth, or if another ship even comes, that's introducing variables and would allow stuff to be thrown away and people to escape. Okay, we now cut to Ezra Burr's room, where she has been... I'm just checking. Has it said that she's... Yeah, I'm trying to figure... Yeah. Trying to figure out what her emotional state is clearly. Like, is she in there grieving or doing other stuff? But it is mentioned that even though this is only hours later after her father's death, Gorkon's body had already been incinerated. Apparently, that's just what the Klingons will do, especially because life was too short, resources too precious to waste on the dead. But Chang comes in, and he's immediately starting his stuff. Have you no guards? Mine was killed, Ezra Burr replied wearily. My fathers are dead or injured. I see little point in resisting the inevitable, General. If Kirk was going to kill me, he would have already done so. Her tone grew faintly challenging. Why have you come? Are there problems with the prisoners? I just like the whole her pointing out, if Kirk wanted me dead, I'd be dead. I like that because technically, assuming Chang is an active conspirator at the moment, because false narrator or he isn't involved yet. But if he is a conspirator, this is also telling Chang, you can't. And it's like Chang would be like, can't assassinate her. That's a good point. I can't blame it on Kirk. He's already captured. Damn it, she's protected. So yeah, I found that amusing. Then there's also this, which unfortunately she does allow the doubt, but this should also be a sign to her not to trust Chang. Why not you, General? Yeah. There's a discussion as far as her having to follow in her father's footsteps. Yeah, who would continue father's work, he asked. Why not you, General? She could not keep the irony out of her voice. If he heard it, for courtesy's sake, he gave no sign. I am a soldier. I was your father's advisor and friend, but we were never in agreement. He smiled thinly. I think we are both aware that I would not be a fit successor. I know more of killing than of life, and at the moment our people must learn how to survive. You no longer have anything to fear from Kirk, but there are others, some of them aboard this vessel. Who? Azabur demanded. He met her gaze directly. Curler. Nah. And there's also and friend. It's like, I don't know if Chang actually has friends. I mean, there is that little bit there where it's like, and friend, it's like, you kidding me, right? No. I think even she would recognize, you two were never friends. What are you talking about? But, she actually, the doubt works, that Chang has planted that seed of doubt. She had always wondered at the change of heart that had made Curler, an avowed warrior, swear fealty to Gorkon and court his daughter. Had he loved her only as a means to power? Had he somehow aided the assassins, perhaps even been the motivating force behind the attack, intending from the beginning to become the Chancellor's consort? I don't think that's what Curler would do. I think it might just be she's attractive. I'm going to try to court her. Probably a good idea if I'm friends with her father. Or even just yes, I am a warrior. I'm an avowed warrior. He's in charge. I need to follow him. That's how that works. I mean, that... Yeah. But it's still, she is seemingly allowing this, this doubt to start forming. A thought had come to mind while I was reading that, but it's kind of disappeared. I mean, I guess I would just add the whole... I mean, why isn't she thinking that maybe he actually does want me? I mean, just... I don't know. Isn't that something women would think? I mean, true, at this time she is more concerned, but I think at some point, wouldn't she think, because he loves me? Not a woman, I wouldn't know. But it just seems like that's kind of also a feminine response. But then it also can be a feminine response that, even the slightest thing, it doesn't matter if they misinterpret it, slightest thing, and it's like, you're bad. It's like, I actually did see a video the other day, that I am certain it was staged, by the way. Certain. That girlfriend actually lives across the street, saw a woman walk into her boyfriend's house, and, in an uproar, came over and was yelling at him. And eventually he's like, don't you remember I told you my sister was coming to stay? And it's just, and it shows them getting back together, and it's like them resolving this and reconciling, but it's like, no, this is how I know it was staged, but it's like, it's still the joke there of, seeing that one possibility, one reason to doubt, and it's like, oh, this is horrible, and he's gonna come over there, yell at him, burn a gift, a bag that he had purchased for her as protest to all this because he's cheating, and it's like, sister, what, sister, but also another reason why it's staged, why I believe that's staged. I mean, I'm sorry, dude should have been like, that was my sister. Now go away. Just no, this is done because the hell, how you should have asked. Should have asked. Or even better, come over and try to confront the two of us there and say, hey, you remember my sister, right? Anyhow. So yeah, now we're back in the president's in his office. And this is prior to, as it were, calling in and having the whole, I want the conference to continue. You want it, my father wanted it, I shall continue it. Give me a week, though. I need to get up to speed on all of his positions and all that. But, yeah, it's like, the whole, we look forward to having you as our guest here. It's like, later recent events, not here. Let's find a neutral location. Make sure it's secure. It's like, yep, that's fair. They did suggest, by the way, the idea of trying to put in a provision with moving forward with the peace conference that the death penalty be taken off the table for Kirk and McCoy. That doesn't get brought up, though. But anyway, he's got an Andorian who's an expert on Klingon culture, and, he's saying his thing, it'll probably cause a war if they intervene. Then you agree, no intervention, the president says. Quite the contrary. I'm simply outlining the most likely scenario. I said it would probably, but not definitely, cause a war. But if we don't react, the Klingons will perceive that as weakness, which will put us in a bad bargaining position in terms of a peace treaty. Frankly, I think the risks of a quick military strike to retrieve Kirk and McCoy are acceptable. War with the Klingons is not to be feared, not at the present time. They're at a disadvantage, and they know it. I get the idea here, but it's also one of those... I'm suspecting this dude's also in on the conspiracy. Because there's other options. You need to do a show of strength? Fine. You can do something else than that. Like just start parking ships along the neutral zone. Parking them at star bases. It's like making sure that the whole fleet is mobilized, kind of thing. Okay, but there's also the element of, yeah, it could even be all right, I want to be there for the trial. I'll be on Excelsior. It's like something like that, where it's like, that's my Earth 1, or whatever they would call it's like Kronos 1. It's named after the planet. So what would they call the Federation planet, the president's ship? I don't know. But yeah, Excelsior, get back here. You're my escort. Because it's still being described as the most advanced ship, such that the Klingons would be scared of it. You do something like that to be like, I'm going to come here. And even if he says nothing during the trial, it still is I am here. I'm showing respect to you. And guess what? You need to be showing respect to me. It'd still work. And not be leading to war. There's also that this might be a clue, which is why I highlighted. Henry Mulray, a middle-aged human, spoke. Sarek had not met Mulray before this meeting, though he had heard of him often. Mulray was the largest contractor of Starfleet's defensive weaponry. The rumor had it that at least part of his wealth had been accumulated by illegal sales of arms to non-Federation customers. So I wonder if this is a piece of evidence in the conspiracy, because they used burning phasers, which are illegal in the Federation. This dude makes weapons and potentially sells to non-Federation customers illegally. So he might have those. He could have provided them. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible that they are both involved. Because there's even a mention that the president finds it disturbing that even Starfleet is recommending the intervention and potentially going to war. Finds that off-putting. But, I mean, to be fair, they are your military advisors at minimum. They are going to advise militarily. But it's also, I could believe that Smiley is more so listening to Cartwright. And that Cartwright who's supposed to be one of the conspirators, is the one really pushing. Although also the lieutenant is in the conspiracy as well. That's one of the things that's cut from the director's cut. That's in the director's cut from the theatrical cut. That at the end, when Scotty shoots the apparent Klingon assassin trying to kill the Federation president, he falls down. They actually find it's a mask, and it was this dude, a human, who was trying to actually do it. They cut that out, along with the scene of him. I'm pretty sure the scene is cut of them talking about the operation to try to rescue Kirk and McCoy. It, by the way, does also mention that the plan is based on one that they'd already prepared if Klingon terrorism had increased, such that, they had hostages and need to go in and do something quick. Which it's just, I do appreciate that, because that does at least provide a reason for the plan to exist before this moment in time. And they've just adapted it. Because it is one of those things, I could believe that somewhere in the Pentagon, we have plans for the invasion of Great Britain. Not because we ever would invade Great Britain, they are such an ally, but just because you got to plan for it. You got to plan for all of it. They probably had plans for invading us too. And I don't just mean old ones from 1776 and 1812. I don't just mean that. It's part of the exercise that you need to do. So yeah, it's I don't know. The chapter was fine. I'm also feeling tired, so sorry that my brain isn't really working great at the moment. Yeah, it will be interesting to see how some of this goes for. I am curious about Azit Burr and Curler. Is she going to have doubts about him? Some degree of caution I'd be okay with, but if she actually doubts him, that could be interesting. That could be interesting to see how that's written. By Chang saying what he said, he has potentially... A wedge has been placed, but has he placed it between Azit Burr and Curler, such as she will be pushed towards Chang? Or has he placed it so that Chang will be separated from her? Because that's also possible. Because she may, at some point, talk with Curler, or he's just there and talking, and she realizes... No, he's not. This isn't him. He's not involved with it. Which would then mean Chang suggesting it. And he's like, I don't have any evidence. It's just a feeling, just an instinct. So he's already couching it where it's like, well, I just thought it. It's okay if I'm wrong. But if she talks to Curler, it's still, and finds that, no, he's not involved. That is then a reason for her to doubt Chang more. So it's actually very risky. It's very risky for Chang to do that, because him being distanced from her just weakens his position. Unless the plan is to assassinate her. Which... And then he somehow figures out how to take control. No, I think the best plan he would have would just be to, get a war going by assassinating the Federation president, as is attempted later on in the movie at least, so that the war is forced, and then he tried to manipulate her, thinking, well, she doesn't know how to prosecute a war, I do, so she's just going to listen to me, I will be the de facto chancellor kind of thing. That's possible, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it will also be interesting to find out, because how much it's been stated in this, that the Klingons are weak, are in a weakened position. They will not be able to defeat the Federation. I do hope we get some greater explanation for what they hope to achieve by a war. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it. It is stated in here as well that the Romulan-Klingon relationship is weakened. It's in a poor state at the moment. Trade is not as good as it had been between them, such that the Romulans actually don't want a peace treaty between the Klingons and the Federation, because that weakens their position. So a war would actually be favorable to them. So, yeah, that is there. And I do like that, because you can't have the Klingons and Romulans getting along very well, because in 90 years, they are supposed to be great enemies. So, yeah. Yep, we shall see how things continue to turn out in Chapter 7. See you then.